Okay, so I've been meaning to talk about this for quite some time. I have always had such a big problem with this idea that you teach people how to treat you. So I'm basically going to be criticizing this article from Psych Central that is called What It Means to Teach People How to Treat You. So it says you teach people how to treat you by setting clear boundaries, defining your expectations, expressing emotions emphatically, and exiting situations you find unacceptable. Now, that sounds fine and dandy at first until you realize that you shouldn't need to teach other people how to treat you. People know what abusive behavior is, and they know how to avoid it. You don't teach people how to treat you. And what would the point of that be? Why would you want to be in a relationship or a friendship with somebody who needs to be taught how to treat you and who doesn't want to do so on their own? So it says teaching people how you want to be treated starts with yourself. You may need to first define what works and doesn't work for you. Then you can be transparent with others. That is somewhat true. You do need to know what behaviors you will and won't tolerate, and you need to know which behaviors are harmful to yourself before you can know which behaviors you want to see in someone else. That is true. Teaching others about what you want doesn't guarantee they'll follow suit, though. So it may also be important to learn how to let go of things you can't control. That is true as well. Teaching people how to treat you is a process that involves introducing them to what is acceptable and unacceptable. It is knowing what we need and want and being able to communicate it effectively to others. See, I don't like this idea that you teach people how to treat you because other people then get to say, well, you never told me that it was wrong to lie to you or to smack you, so I didn't know. Now I'll stop doing it. Well, that's ridiculous. The person just gets to do however many bad behaviors they want and say, oh, well, I didn't realize you didn't like that. So number one, starting with yourself. To teach people how to treat you, don't begin with them, you begin with yourself. Okay, that's true, I guess, but I don't really think that's totally accurate. It is true you need to be clear on what you need and want from others. That is true. But so much of the time, you see, they're talking about self-respect. Self-respect helps you recognize what you deserve to be treated. I don't think you need to know anything about yourself to know XYZ behaviors are wrong and nobody should be doing them, including people who are doing them to me. So the way you believe about and treat yourself sets the standard for others on how you demand to be treated. People learn how to treat you based on what you accept from them. That is not accurate for several reasons. People who do not treat themselves well often have friends who treat themselves better than they treat themselves. I've never treated somebody poorly because they treated themselves poorly. In fact, I've often begged them to treat themselves better. This article, or this person quoted in this article, is saying that it's perfectly acceptable for somebody to treat you like shit because you're treating yourself like shit, and that they can play dumb and say, oh, I didn't realize you didn't like being treated like shit because you treated yourself that way. This flies right in the face of the idea that there are certain objectively bad and good behaviors that people can do to themselves and others. I also find it very ironic because in this society, there is such a drive to diagnose and otherize and criticize people for not intuitively knowing what good and bad behavior is, whether it's how oneself is being treated or how one is treating somebody else. Like if I were to fail to treat someone else well, or to not read what they wanted me to do or what they wanted me to say, even if it was something harmless and really, really nuanced, I would be diagnosed with something or told that I had some sort of a social problem. I had a problem reading people, whatever. But apparently it's perfectly okay for bullies to claim that they don't know how you want to be treated, and they don't get to have any excuse for that. Or they do get an excuse for that, rather. You don't have an excuse for not knowing how others want to be treated, but bullies have an excuse for not knowing how you want to be treated. So if I don't know that a person doesn't want me to say some really specific phrase because it offends them, and it's this really arbitrary thing, that's my problem, and I have to learn how to read people better and to intuit what other people want to hear. But the bully doesn't have to intuit that other people don't want to be lied to and bitched off on. It's I don't agree with that at all. So people learn how to treat you based on what you accept from them. See, I call that bullshit. That implies that people are robots and that you're forcing them to treat you poorly by allowing them to. It also implies that given the option, anybody would treat you like shit unless you were to try to stop them. It also means that the victim has to engage in a relationship in which they have to always expend energy trying to get other people not to abuse them. Wouldn't you rather be in a relationship with somebody who chooses not to treat you poorly, both because it saves you energy and also because it speaks to their inner character? I don't want to be with somebody who would treat me poorly if they were able to, even if I could just snap my fingers and have them behave properly. I don't like the idea of somebody wanting to treat me that way. Also, people learn how to treat you based on what you accept from them. People already know, as I said above, what shitty treatment looks like. People do not need to be taught what shitty behavior is, which, again, it's so ironic because if you make a totally innocent social faux pas, people will jump down your throat. But if you make the quote-unquote mistake of lying or cheating on somebody, you can claim, oh, I didn't know any better. Like, that's bullshit. So, yeah, people learn how to treat you based on what you accept from them. I don't agree with that because... forgot what I was going to say, but like, it implies that it implies that it's completely normal for people to take advantage of other people and that stopping them is the only way to prevent that. Well, no, I mean, I think, here's what I was going to say. It trains people to get stuck in toxic relationships because they think that a toxic person is perfectly acceptable that they behave that way because I let them. And if I just tried hard enough to stop them, they would stop. There's this accusation that people who are quote unquote codependent always stay with toxic people, but I don't think this is the case. A lot of times the quote unquote codependency or the toxic person magnet trait is really just a person who has been taught all this bullshit. And the reason that they are stuck in abusive relationships is because these same people are always the ones reading this material. This material is targeted. It's sort of like pushed on people who've already been abused. So people who have already been abused are reading this material that's telling them to keep trying with an abusive person, and it's your fault for not setting down boundaries. And if you just tell them how to treat you, they'll listen. So the same person keeps ending up in abusive relationships over and over and over again because they're the ones reading this self-help bullshit that keeps them banging their head on the wall, hoping it'll change into a door. So, set your rules of engagement. People don't know how you want to be treated. Fucking bullshit, as I said above. In order for people in a relationship to be on the same page, they need to have access to the same instruction manual. Okay, instruction manual. See, if I ever claimed that I needed an instruction manual to know not to burgle a store or to rob a bank or to smack a person over the back of the head, people would say I was nuts or that I was an asshole. But if your partner doesn't know not to name call, not to yell, not to ignore somebody, to give you the benefit of the doubt, and to not verbally attack you, why is that not equally laughed at? If the person, like, if a partner says they don't know that they weren't supposed to do these things, why are they not considered crazy as well? If I went and smacked an old lady on the back, everybody would call me a nut job if I said she didn't teach me that she didn't want to be treated that way. But it's perfectly okay to name call and yell at your spouse because you can just claim that you didn't know they hated being treated that way. Like, that sounds like bullshit. Communicating clearly and empathetically. Rather than scream, "You never listen to me," it is more helpful to express, "I feel alone right now and be grateful if I could have your undivided attention for 10 minutes. You know, that's a load of bullshit. If somebody's not listening to you already, they're not going to listen to that either. So, in other words, you teach people how to treat you when you identify a need and express it in a clear and comprehensible way. See, that's a load of bullshit. People do not have trouble understanding what you need. And expressing it with pouting, desperation, etc., abuse, I don't think makes it any less obvious. I think maybe the person does not want to listen because they're being spiteful, but I don't think that it makes it any less clearly communicated. What that means is, you better teach me how to treat you. Oh, and by the way, if you don't do it exactly to my liking, I get to abuse you some more. Well, all a person has to do in order to not listen to you and to get to keep abusing you is to just describe your behavior as pouting, as desperate, or as abusive. They can describe any behavior they want that way. And you're not allowed to use the silent treatment either, so just walking away also permits them to keep abusing you. So no matter what you do, the other person gets to keep mistreating you. So modeling behavior, be the person you want the other people to be. I guarantee you that the victim is already doing this. If you want your children to be kind to you, be kind to them. If you want your sweetheart to be romantic and affectionate with you, be that way with them. You know what? No. Abusers target people who are normal, who are kind, who are compassionate, like everybody is supposed to be. They don't target other abusers because vampires cannot live among vampires. Abusers and toxic people only target people who are not like them. Reinforce what you would like. Express appreciation when the other person makes the effort to change their behavior. Well, that assumes that they are going to try to change, which they often don't. I appreciate that you listened to me so intently yesterday, you might say. Well, to me that sounds ridiculous. A person shouldn't need to be told that they like being listened to. A person should not be told what to do. And it's a really awkward thing to have to say, I appreciate that you listened. I appreciate that you did this completely normal, everyday thing that you're supposed to do. That's a weird way to behave. And I guarantee you that you're just reinforcing that this is abnormal, special privilege, special gift behavior instead of just basic decency. If you're saying, I appreciate that you listened to me, you're implying that the listening is like some sort of an unnecessary gift. Picking a role model to emulate. Find a role model of someone who demands respect and appears to have a strong sense of worth. That doesn't work because a lot of times when a member of a disadvantaged group of people tries to imitate a person who has social privilege, they aren't treated the same. If a black person tries to behave the way a white person does, they might not be treated equally depending upon who is surrounding them. If a woman tries to act like a man, well, we all know what happens there. We're not given the same respect the man is. We're called bossy. Also, again, you shouldn't need to teach people how to treat you. People should not need to demand respect in order to receive respect. And I don't think that you should want to end up with somebody who treats you respectfully only when it's conditional. People should treat you fairly and respectfully and kindly, however strong or weak you are. Keeping it real. You don't teach people how to treat you in a day, week, or a month. It probably takes many months at minimum to really get someone to treat you the way you want to be treated. That's bullshit. If a person is wasting months of their life trying to teach somebody how to act differently, the best thing to do is to just leave. That I would agree with this article about. Also, I was going to say before, teaching people how to treat us implies that the treatment is the solution. The good behavior is not the goal. Having our partner act in doing and saying certain things to us that's not what we should be aiming for. What we should be aiming for is having a good person. I'm less interested in whether the behavior is good and more interested in whether the person behind the behavior is good. If a person is behaving perfectly, but only because they're being forced to, that means that their soul and their spirit and their person is not really good. I don't want somebody whose behavior is good. I want somebody who's good. At that point, you need to ask yourself what's in your best interest, a relationship at the cost of you or making room for the future relationships you deserve. I agree 100% with that, only I would not let it take months or even weeks or even days. I would skedaddle. I understand it's not always easy to leave toxic relationships. I'm just saying that it would be good if someone was able to do such a thing. Because staying and trying does not work. And it's just going to get you a diagnosis of codependency from these same people who are the ones convincing you that you can eventually get the person to cooperate. So I would just not listen to this bullshit altogether and just find somebody who wants to treat you well because they would like to, not because they're forced to. So that's all I got for today. If you like this episode, just like, share, and subscribe. donate to me on Venmo at BlackSwan88, and I will see you next time.